The Pittsburgh Steelers are once again at the center of the NFL playoff conversation, and this season feels fundamentally different from what fans have seen over the last several years. Coming off a critical late-season victory, Pittsburgh sits at 9-6 and has officially secured another winning season. On the surface, that may not seem unusual for a franchise known for consistency, but when the context is examined more closely, it becomes clear why league observers are beginning to take this team seriously as a playoff threat. Before we dive deeper, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are on the way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support means a lot. Recently, an article published by Mike DeFabo of The Athletic captured the shift in perception with a simple but powerful headline. This time, the Steelers look like they belong in the playoffs. That statement carries weight, especially considering how the Steelers have been viewed in recent postseason races. Often competitive, but rarely dangerous. The turning point for that perception came in Pittsburgh's win over the Detroit Lions, one of the most surprising and impressive performances of the entire NFL season. That victory pushed the Steelers to 9-6 and further solidified their position in the AFC playoff picture. 1 week later, Detroit was eliminated from postseason contention following another loss, highlighting just how quickly circumstances can change in the NFL. But that does not diminish what Pittsburgh accomplished in that matchup. In fact, it reinforces it. Detroit entered the game as the highest-scoring offense in the league. They had been dominating opponents through a balanced attack, elite offensive efficiency, and one of the strongest rushing units in football. Against Pittsburgh, that offense was completely shut down. The Lions finished the game with just 15 rushing yards as a team. For a unit that had relied heavily on its ground game all season, that outcome was staggering. Pittsburgh did not benefit from an early blowout or unusual game script. Instead, the Steelers won at the line of scrimmage from start to finish. Elite running backs were neutralized. Offensive linemen were consistently beaten. Detroit had no ability to control tempo, which ultimately forced them into mistakes and limited their scoring opportunities. That defensive performance alone would have been noteworthy, but it becomes even more significant when paired with the experience and leadership at quarterback. One statistic perfectly illustrates why this season feels different for Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers has more career playoff wins than all quarterbacks currently in the AFC playoff field combined. Experience of that level is rare, and when postseason football arrives, it becomes invaluable. While the structure of the Steelers roster may resemble previous seasons, strong pass catchers, a committee of tight ends, and a defense capable of taking over games, the quarterback position fundamentally changes the ceiling of this team. Before this stretch, Pittsburgh faced legitimate criticism. Against teams currently in playoff position, the Steelers were just 1-5. Defensively, they had allowed 30 or more points in multiple games. Consistency was a concern, and for a stretch, the team lost 5 of 7 games. There were questions surrounding leadership, coaching stability, and whether the roster was good enough to compete at a high level. Public perception was trending downward. That perception has shifted dramatically. As the season has progressed, Aaron Rodgers has quietly put together an efficient and productive campaign. Approaching 3,000 passing yards, throwing 23 touchdowns, and limiting turnovers to just 7 interceptions, Rodgers has demonstrated that his ability to control games and elevate an offense remains intact. At 42 years old, the discussion has changed. Instead of questioning decline, analysts are now asking how far this team can go with a quarterback who has consistently delivered under pressure throughout his career. That pressure response was evident in the win over Detroit, where Pittsburgh also showcased one of its most effective rushing performances of the season. Jaylen Warren led the way with 14 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. As a team, the Steelers rushed for 230 yards on just 27 attempts, averaging an impressive 8.5 yards per carry. While Pittsburgh has not been a dominant rushing team throughout the season, this performance demonstrated the offense's ability to adapt and exploit favorable matchups. Context matters. Detroit's defense has struggled against the run at times and has dealt with injuries throughout the season. Still, executing at that level requires preparation, discipline, and physicality. Qualities that become critical in postseason play. Despite that breakout performance, Pittsburgh's identity remains rooted in its defense, and the unit delivered one of its most complete efforts of the year against one of the league's best offenses. What made the performance even more impressive was the absence of key defenders. Without TJ Watt and Nick Herbig, the responsibility shifted to the rest of the unit, and they responded. Cam Hayward consistently disrupted the interior. Keanu Benton and Jack Sawyer made impactful plays in the backfield. Kyler Duggar contributed across multiple phases, and the defense even produced a safety that swung momentum firmly in Pittsburgh's favor. Although the closing moments of the game were chaotic and prolonged, the Steelers ultimately did what strong teams do. They secured the stop when it mattered most. Now, attention turns to the final stretch of the regular season. With 2 games remaining, Pittsburgh controls its own destiny. A win against Cleveland would position the Steelers to capture the AFC North title, moving them to 10-6 and securing a home playoff game. That scenario dramatically changes the outlook for any potential opponents. Playing in Pittsburgh in January presents unique challenges: weather, crowd noise, physical defense, and a quarterback with extensive playoff experience. Looking at the likely AFC wildcard teams, none would enter that environment with confidence. Whether it is Buffalo, Houston, or Los Angeles, winning on the road against this version of the Steelers would be a difficult task. In recent years, Pittsburgh often entered the postseason with uncertainty at quarterback. Fans and analysts alike attempted to rationalize potential paths to victory through conservative game plans, defensive reliance, and favorable matchups. This season is different. There is no need for hypothetical scenarios or strategic overthinking. The Steelers enter the playoff conversation with clarity at the most important position in football. When evaluating the AFC landscape, inconsistency is widespread. Injuries, inexperienced quarterbacks, and uneven performances have defined much of the conference. In that environment, stability and experience become major advantages. For the first time in years, Pittsburgh is not simply hoping to survive a playoff game. They are positioned to compete. That shift in expectation is significant. The Steelers are not perfect. There are areas that still need improvement, but they are playing their best football at the right time, and they possess traits that consistently translate to postseason success: defense, physicality, and quarterback experience. As the season reaches its most important stretch, every snap, decision, and adjustment carries added weight. Pittsburgh has shown resilience, adaptability, and the ability to rise in high-pressure moments. While questions still remain, the foundation is clearly stronger than in recent seasons. As the regular season reaches its conclusion, the question is no longer whether the Steelers belong in the playoffs. The question is how dangerous they can be once they get there. Now it's time to hear from Steelers fans. Do you think this team is capable of winning the Super Bowl? Or do you also think they will exit the playoffs immediately or fail to qualify? Where does this 9-6 Steelers team rank in your confidence level? Share your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe for continued coverage as the NFL postseason approaches.